Hello, everybody. So I've titled today, Making IT Work for You, a Millennials Guide. And we'll get on to why I've titled it that in 2 seconds. First and foremost, well, who am I? Okay, so I'm Owen from Code 56. You might hear something weird about the way I sound. I'm not actually originally from the UK. I was born in the States. I moved over in '98. I was 12. Kind of grew up in the UK, really. So I got into IT in the early 2000s through a self-funded course, landed a job in a company that dealt with banks and building societies and insurance companies doing risk management and fraud detection software. So that saw me learn to bridge business and tech quite well. Because in one conversation we'd be talking about the fraud that they're trying to find and the behaviors and things like that, and how the report needed to be so that the fraud team could do their thing. And then I'd sometimes literally cross the corridor and go start talking tech. Like, where in the network do we need to patch this in and all that kind of stuff. All the jargon and all the techie stuff, you know, stained Metallica t-shirts, the whole thing. So that kind of set the foundation for me. I bounced around a little bit in IT roles, and then the opportunity to set Code 56 came up, so I snapped it with both my hands. So I mentioned millennials, right? Everybody's dogging on millennials at the minute. So what is a millennial? And what isn't a millennial? I think at the minute it's just being used as a catch-all for anybody who's young, in inverted commas, whatever that means to you. In actual fact, it's anybody who was born between 1981 and 1996. So yeah. Loads of you were like, oh shit, I thought millennials were like 25. Nope. So it's anybody really from sort of 23 to 38. And I was thinking about that, and it annoys me that people are talking about my generation like we're a bunch of plebs. Well, there's this snowflakery and things like that, and some of it is legitimate, but some of it runs through every generation. It's not an age thing. But that got me thinking about, well, what does my age, what benefits does that give me in what we do? We deal with technology all the time, and actually as a millennial, I grew up with tech at an age-appropriate level. Like, I got my first mobile phone when I was like 12, 13, you know, when I kind of knew how to use it, or how to interact with people, I should say. I got my first smartphone when I was a young adult. And again, I'd earned that privilege, if that makes sense. Now we have kids now, 6, smartphones, Snapchat, all that crap. Like, whoa, they're born into it, whereas it came around as I was getting older. So in my working career, I've seen a legitimate reason to use a fax machine. Like, it's 2019 now, faxes need to die. But there's that understanding that sometimes the way we do things today were because we had to do it that way. There was no other way to do it. Doesn't necessarily mean the world hasn't changed under our feet, and there's different ways to do it now. And to be delicate with that, because sometimes people are a bit precious about the way things are done, because maybe they introduced it in the first place. It's important to them, so you have to balance that and not just go chasing the next shiny thing. So that's kind of why I wanted to title this as a Millennials Guide. I feel like as a millennial, we've got a kind of unique experience on how we can merge business and tech based on how things have kind of come in as we've been ready for it, if that makes sense. So the next big question is, what does IT do? What do we really do? I think everybody comfortable with Friends, the TV show, and Chandler. No one knows what the hell he does. It's a bit like that sometimes. But IT is a collection of different things. So you've got things like help desk, which is when your laptop stops working, you pick up the phone, you're talking to help desk. They're there to react and to fix the problems that you're experiencing. Right through to application management, so setting up platforms and things like that for the business to use and make it more efficient. I'm not going to go through each and every single one of those because I've only got 15 minutes. But the core, it's about enabling and facilitating people. It's about creating things that can be used to make things more efficient, make it easier to get things done, make it more consistent so that there's less errors, or fewer errors, I should say. So with this in mind, how do you go about getting the most from your IT? Whatever size business you are, how do you get the best out of the technology that you need to use to get your job done? First 3 points I want to make. Engage experts early. And this isn't unique to IT. So I'm sure most of us, if not all of us around the room, will fall into this category. We know what we do really, really well. Okay, be you an accountant, solicitor, IT person. Okay, so we are the experts in our narrow field of expertise. So it makes sense to engage us early on in your decision-making process so that you can make more informed decisions more quickly. Yeah, so it's a bit like selling your house and then going to your accountant and saying, how can I sell my house more tax efficiently? Well, you've already done it. There's nothing we can do. Whereas if you're thinking about expanding or opening up a new office, if you just run that by your tech people to get their kind of input, you'll know what tools you've got to play with. I think I put it before, if you went to play chess, you've got no expectation of winning that game if you don't know what the moves the pieces can make. It's that same thing. It's about getting the information early enough into your decision-making process that you've not shot yourself in the foot before it's too late, if that makes sense. And then that bleeds on to prioritize together. So in the tech world, there's things that I think are like red lights, red flags everywhere. We need to do this. So it could be security related, it could be software's going out of date, it could be a whole bunch of things. In the business world, we have a whole different set of priorities. We've got all the things we need to do more on social media, we need to do more marketing, we need to make sure that we're doing things legally and ethically and all of this stuff. And it's about, okay, well, my severity 1 priority might be a 10 in terms of the business. So if I'm sprouting off about this, and it's only a 10 for the business, then I need to know that so that I don't feel I'm in a vacuum, if that makes sense. Force multiplier. Your technology should be something that multiplies your force. It's as simple as that. What I mean by that is if you spent £1,000 in marketing budget, you'd want a return with that. And we're all pretty comfortable with that as a concept. If you spend £1,000 on technology or software or something to help you get your work done, you should get a similar sort of return. It should enable you and make it easier, quicker, more efficient. It should really be pushed behind you. It can either be a business-killing burden and a cost center and something like, gee, why are we spending all this money on IT? It should be, actually, let's engage these people early, let's make sure we're sharing our priorities, and oh wow, look, we can do this now because of our technology and because of our use. 3 more things. Delegate, don't abdicate. For those of you in the room who were at Serena Humphrey's presentation to the Derby Hub back when we were at Marble Hall for a few weeks, she's where this comes from. So Serena is a finance kind of trainer, really. She used to be an accountant, but now she works with people to train them about their finances. And this really resonated with me. And what I mean by this is if you tell me, as long as it works, I don't care, that's a really dangerous statement. If you tell me you want a new car, Owen, go get me a new car, you're going to end up with the car I want, not the car you want. As long as it works, I don't care. No, you don't need to know the ins and outs of how it works, but you need to know enough that you're comfortable in understanding what's there. Because I might get hit by a bus, or you might move your business and now your tech person can't support you there anymore, or whatever the case might be. Something might come along that kind of derails things, and if you don't know what's going on, at least a little bit, then you're going to end up in a really bad situation. Also, it's 2019. We need to acknowledge that change is always happening, okay? Let's just get that out there. The world is changing under our feet right now. I've already mentioned, kids 6 years old with smartphones. It's a world that I'm an alien to. So as we grow, I'm acutely aware that we need to be bringing from the younger generation and bringing that in to train them again. Look at the business, look at the technology, look at how things are changing and how we can enable people with those changes. And continuous improvement. Okay, I've said it before, perfection does not exist. Okay, you will never be perfect. It's that simple. It's not going to happen. You can always be better. When you've done something, you can do it a little bit better next time, and a little bit better the next time. Those marginal gains really start to add up. And if you go into something thinking, okay, we need it good, we've got good, how can we do better? How can we do better? And reiterate through it, you're going to get the best out of your technology, you're going to get the best out of your teams. This is the sort of stuff that bleeds through a bit of a broader scale. So, I've been a bit high level, I know. And what I wanted to do was make sure that I spoke about some things you could take away with you right now take them back to your work later this afternoon and start working on. So we have Cyber Essentials. It's a government-backed scheme that has 5 really basic points. Okay, and the idea here is that everybody gets to a certain level where, you know, their cybersecurity, in inverted commas, is okay. Okay, so these are the most basic 5 points. 1, make sure your updates and patches are being applied to your computers, your network equipment, all those bits and pieces that you need to get connected to your work. Make sure they're getting their regular updates. The reason being, somebody's going to come along one day and find out they can open the door if they press it in these 3 little places, the door opens wide open. You're going to fix that. Whereas with your computer, it's kind of hidden from you because it's between you and your work, if that makes sense. So just make sure that they're getting updated regularly. The next principle is least privilege. So the thought here is, if I don't need access to your account system, why have I got access to the account system? So if Wendy in the warehouse is doing the picking, she doesn't necessarily need to know what the customer's address is, does she? No, she just needs to know what she needs to pick and what box she needs to put it in. Dispatch, yeah, they need the address. They don't need their payment information, so it's thinking about what people need to get their job done and not giving them too much. Bleeds into GDPR and all of that stuff as well. Your perimeter security, so the really posh word for your firewall. Now, if you're a small business, maybe it's just yourself, maybe you're working from home. Chances are the router that you get with your internet has got a firewall built into it that is okay and will do the job well enough. It's when you start, you know, hosting services yourself that you need to look at something a bit more advanced. But that's just making sure that people can't just walk into the field and take your horse away. Modern antivirus, make sure it's up to date, make sure it's tackling the current threats. There's loads out there. They range in budget from free to 50 quid per endpoint. They all do slightly different things. The key thing at the minute is ransomware, because it will lock you out of your computer, and they keep changing it ever so slightly to defeat the things that check by signature based. They're sort of like a fingerprint check. Well, if I just slice my fingerprint a little bit, I was suddenly different and I can get through that net. Strong passwords. Cool. People hate me because I give them really strong passwords. Now, you're probably in your head, you've got like 25 characters, all sorts of different symbols and stuff. No. Just think random. 3 random words and a number. Use some spaces, use some hyphens. Suddenly, you've got a 25-character password right there that no one's going to guess. And chances are 2 or 3 of you have already remembered what it is, because it's simple. And don't use this password. I use this for... Shut up. And then the other thing is use a password manager to keep track of all of those things. So this is like a little black book. It can be a little black book that you keep locked in your cupboard, as long as that cupboard's not right next to your PC and I can't get into it straight away if I was to break into your office. Or it can be like a little digital safe. That's what we use. And you can keep it secure and things like that. If you do have any questions about this stuff, by all means grab me afterwards. That's absolutely fine. We are doing an Ask Me Anything this afternoon at 4 o'clock. Check out Twitter for a link. Lee was on it earlier. Ask him about it. So yeah, that's me. That's kind of a 15-minute Millennials guide to how to get the most out of your IT, really. So I think we still have some time for questions, if that's cool. Anybody got, not that much. I mean, I'm only a minute after my 15.
Just going back to you were saying about the passwords and how you keep them secure.
Yep.
There's a few online tools, isn't there? Would you recommend that?
Okay, cool. So maybe is the answer. So with online tools that sort of check your password strength, you have to be wary about where you're putting this information into, because I could set up a website right now that just told you whatever you put into it was nice and secure, but also just stored that information. Okay. So if it's asking you for an email address and your password, no, just never. But also just be wary of it. Just kind of maybe Google it and then say, scam or something like that afterwards, just to kind of reassure yourself. But ultimately,
you have it written down and you have it in a digital.
So we use a digital safe that we then back up to a third location as well. So we don't really write them down.
This is what I didn't get.
Okay, sorry. So no, we use a program called KeePass.
Okay.
It's spelled KEEPASS. It's a free program that you can download. It runs on Windows, Macs, Linux. There's a version that runs on Android as well. So it runs like everywhere. And then what you do is you create a safe database file, and you lock that up, and you store your passwords in that, basically. That will also generate random passwords for you. So you don't even need to think of them. You just go, create one, I'm using that. I don't even know what it is. Pardon me. So, yeah,
Thank you.
no problem. Justina.
What would you recommend for an antivirus? Because I'm not talking a bit, I'm talking about most of them just work on their own with a laptop.
Okay.
You go and buy a laptop and they always try and sell you Norton, all of those. So what are your top 3 that you would recommend?
So there's 2 that we use at the moment. And I touched on this when they asked me anything earlier, but my point is it depends on 1, how willing you are to do it yourself, 2, how many computers you need to manage, and 3, how kind of tech savvy you are, really, on your day-to-day use. So the built-in stuff in Windows 10 is called Windows Defender, and I'll be honest, it's okay. You know, it's if you've got one laptop, you're a bit tech savvy, and you're happy to do it yourself, you make sure you're updating and whatnot, go for it. It's there. It's getting better every day, because they really are. The Microsoft team, are really concentrating on security at the moment. So yeah, that's there. If you're not running Windows 10, then you really want to be looking at paid software, or if you're using it and you're regularly opening up files that third parties are sending to you and things like that. So some people might be freelancers. We've got one customer that do transcriptions. So TV companies will send them lots of different files and stuff. So for an extra level of security, we've gone for something that's a paid product, because they would be opening up third-party files all the time. So there's a higher chance that something might get in that they're not expecting, but they accidentally open it. And that's where you're going to get hit, basically. So the 2 that we've used are WebRoot, which is nice and cheap, if I'm honest. It does an okay job. And then we've recently started using a product called Komodo One. It's a little bit more advanced, has a lot of tools that we can use to remotely manage the computer as well, so we can push out things like updates to the wider computer. We can start running things to make sure that the performance of the computer is okay and stuff like that. But if it's just one machine and you're happy kind of taking some of that work on yourself, yeah, something like Windows Defender is fine.
Okay. I've been advised, and I don't know whether this is a myth, that if you are using a second antivirus, that then it could conflict with maybe the Windows 10 antivirus, and that could cause more of an issue by not stopping something rather than stopping something.
Cool. So I'm recording audio, so I'm just going to repeat the question so that I know it got cut. So the question's about running 2 antiviruses at the same time, essentially, and what the impact of that is. 1, it depends on what the antivirus software is. Things like WebRoot run in a different way, so actually you won't see any performance impact, or you shouldn't do anyway. The bigger problem is not that something might get through because they're kind of fighting each other. It's more that while they're both running, the performance of your laptop will be dreadful, because it might be that this one opens that file and starts to scan, and then this one sees that something's going on, so it starts scanning, and you end up with a laptop that's just scanning itself twice. And you can't get any work done, which is then when you uninstall one of them, you notice that it's back to normal. So that's more the issue. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, just I've got obviously the Windows one. And
So sorry, that's the other one. So
on there as well, but
when you install, so the McAfee, there's a couple of different products that they do. So it might be that that's like a web shield or something like that does a very specific small task, at which point there's nothing really to worry about. But if you install something that is an antivirus product, it will automatically shut Windows Defender down, or shut the parts of it down that it needs to, so that you don't get that situation where they clash. Cool. We have a question over here. No? I thought I saw a hand. Any more questions?
I've got one. On your slide of what is IT,
Yep.
there's a bunch of stuff there. What's, bring it up. Of that, what are people most surprised about, and what kind of benefit or opportunity is there that they just haven't considered before?
I think, cool. So the question is, out of all the things that IT do, what's the biggest sort of surprise? What's the biggest kind of thing that you don't expect from your IT people. If I'm honest, right now I think it probably falls under the Management Information Systems, or MIS. Basically, this is giving business people the information they need to make decisions in a timely manner, is essentially what it boils down to. We just give it really long words and an acronym that we can all talk about, MIS. I think this is the future of IT, personally, because every year we get a crop of students coming out of university or college or school, whatever the GCSE level is now, who have been born in tech. So they don't necessarily have the same kind of day-to-day troubleshooting issues that some of the older generation might, where they weren't born with tech. And I personally think the future of Code 56 is more down this line, where we're helping to connect the dots for the business and going, right, tell us about the information that you need to do what you do. Tell us about the information that you need to make effective marketing decisions, or, effective accounts decisions. You've got that data somewhere. Let's find it and let's present it to you in a way that makes sense to you. And if it doesn't make sense, let's change it so it does. And I think it's that sort of thing, and maybe some of the project management that really surprises people that actually, yeah, there's some IT people that do it, because I think we get a bit of a bad rap because a lot of us are basement dwelling techies. No windows, like I said, stained metal t-shirts and stuff like that. There's some laughs, people have seen it. But at the end of the day, we're problem solvers. So you might not feel comfortable bringing somebody into like a director's meeting to talk about some sensitive business stuff. But I'd like to think that if you did, you're asking a problem solver who's going to see something that needs a solution and maybe use that a little bit more. I think there's a hidden talent that businesses don't quite tap into because, they're just the tech people. He just fixes my laptop. And there's some hidden skill sets there, I think. That answer? Yeah. Any other questions, or should I sit down? Yeah? Cool. Do you want me to shut the camera off?